Gabriella had just turned 15 and was an ordinary girl from a poor family. Her father, Hugo, worked as a carpenter, while her mother, Isabella, sewed and knitted things to order. Gabriella's older brother, Pedro, who was 17, helped their father in the workshop. The family lived in a small but cozy house on the outskirts of the city. Gabriella went to school, walked in the park with her friends, and attended drawing and dance classes organized by the school for children from poor families. The girl enjoyed her calm and measured life, but one day trouble knocked on their door. Her father fell seriously ill, and a significant amount of money was needed for his treatment, which the family, of course, did not have. Naturally, when friends, acquaintances, and neighbors found out about what had happened, they all tried to help as much as they could, but it still wasn't enough. Then, one of Isabella's friends, who was involved in trade, suggested that the young woman sell her products at the market. She said she would arrange with the right people to get Isabella a good spot for trading. The only thing left to decide was the goods, which the woman didn't have. Isabella thought it over and decided that during the day she would continue to work on orders, and in the evening she would start sewing children's toys. Gabriella helped her mother with all her might. She cut out the details and sewed button eyes onto the finished toys. In addition, the girl came up with her own idea. Since Gabriella drew well, she suggested that her brother carve wooden horses, deer, butterflies, and winged angels, which she could beautifully paint with acrylic paints. Pedro gladly agreed as he liked his sister's idea. The family business was in full swing, and everyone did their best to help their father. After school and on weekends, Gabriella helped her mother sell the finished products at the market. They stood all day under the scorching sun, inviting customers. Sometimes things went well, and the toys sold out very quickly, but there were also times when they sold at most 1 or 2 items in a day. This greatly upset the girl because she really wanted to help her father. Day by day, the hand-painted wooden toys made by the brother and sister became better and more skillful, and customers were increasingly eager to buy them. One day, a distinguished man in his 40s in a light suit walked through the market. He was not very tall, with dark hair and tan skin. The man stopped to look at the painted figurines and examined them for a long time. Isabella and Gabriella saw that their potential buyer was very wealthy. He had a gold ring with a large gemstone on his hand, gold watches glittered on his wrist, and he smelled of expensive perfume. Finally he looked up. "Glad to meet you. Could you please tell me who is the author of this beauty?" "I can see that it is handmade," the man asked politely. As he spoke, he smiled, making his face pleasant and charming. "This is the joint work of my son and daughter," Isabella replied. "My son carves the figures in the workshop, and my daughter paints them with acrylic paints using her imagination." The man nodded, and his smile widened even more. "So these are your masterpieces?" he asked Gabriella. The girl shyly smiled back. "My name is Alicio Negra. I am a sculptor, but now I mainly run a business," the man introduced himself, handing Isabella a business card with golden letters. Then he turned to the girl again. "And what is your name, señorita?" he asked. "My name is Gabriella," she replied. "I go to school and also take drawing and dance classes." "Wonderful," Gabriella de Alicio beamed. "I have a business proposal for you." Gabriella looked at her mother in amazement. She looked just as surprised as her daughter. She lightly shrugged her shoulders and prepared to listen to the man. "I'll start a little from afar. Many years ago my mother, an ordinary seamstress from Italy, moved to this beautiful city. Here she got married and gave birth to a son, my father. When he grew up, he became a very good sculptor. His works were exhibited in city exhibitions more than once. It was from my father that I inherited my love for handmade work. I also trained as a sculptor, but I wasn't drawn to spending long, lonely hours in the workshop. I enjoy being in the center of events, communicating with people, and making money, a lot of money. So, I studied various business strategies for a long time and finally started my own business." The man paused for a moment and, taking a handkerchief out of his pocket, wiped the sweat from his forehead. "May I offer you a drink? We have homemade lemonade." "In such heat, one constantly wants to drink," said Isabella, taking out a clean paper cup. The man nodded gratefully. "You can sit here," I added Gabriella, pointing to a free wicker chair where she usually sat when there were no customers. Mr. Alicio sat down and, after taking several big sips, continued his story. My company produces and sells statuettes for interiors. Things are going well, and I have been thinking for quite some time that it's time to expand. These thoughts have been spinning in my head all morning, not giving me peace. I was trying to come up with something unusual and interesting while in the car when the driver was taking me to the office. On the way, we had a flat tire and had to stop to fix it. While the driver was doing the repair, I decided to take a walk and accidentally wandered into the market. When I saw your work, young señorita, an idea immediately came to my mind. How would you like to help me bring it to life? Gabriella could hardly believe what she had heard. You want me to be your business partner? The girl finally said. That's one way to put it, Alicio smiled. If it's convenient for you, we could meet at my office tomorrow and discuss the details. Come around 10 o'clock with your mother. Gabriella and Isabella exchanged excited glances, neither could believe what was happening. Meanwhile, Alicio's phone rang and the man answered. Was the tire fixed? Great, I'm coming back. Saying this, Mr. Negra put the phone in his pocket and got up from the chair. Shaking hands with the mother and daughter in turn, he thanked Isabella for the lemonade and, before saying goodbye, asked, So, what will your answer be? I hope it's positive. Isabella smiled and hastily nodded. Yes, of course we will come. The office address is on the business card. With these words, Alicio nodded one last time and hurried away. Isabella and Gabriella exchanged glances again, but this time their faces were glowing with joy. How lucky we are, the woman shared her emotions. I hope that cooperation with this businessman will help us quickly pay for Dad's treatment. Gabriella came closer and hugged Isabella. I hope so too, Mommy. The girl was eagerly and anxiously awaiting the upcoming meeting with Alicio. The next day, Isabella and Gabriella took the metro to the city center. The woman wore a white blouse with a bow and a strict gray skirt below the knee. The girl wore a pale blue short-sleeved shirt and a pleated blue skirt. Because of the meeting with Mr. Negra, Gabriella had to miss school, and Isabella did not go to the market and declined a new client's order. However, both hoped it would be worth it. Exactly at 10 o'clock, the woman and the girl were in Alicio's office. They were greeted by a pretty red-haired secretary who offered them to wait a bit. Mr. Negra will be with you in a minute. Can I offer you some coffee or juice in the meantime? Black coffee, please, Isabella nodded shyly. An orange juice, Gabriella added timidly. When the secretary left to prepare the drinks, the mother and daughter looked around the businessman's reception area. It seemed very cozy to them. The designers had painted the room's walls gray, and the couch where Isabella and Gabriella were sitting was bright yellow. On the walls hung photographs of figurines and other interior items sold by the company. The girl involuntarily imagined that one day the painted horses she and her brother made would also appear on one of the posters. At that moment, the secretary returned, carrying a yellow tray with drinks. Isabella and Gabriella had just finished their drinks when Alicio appeared in the doorway. He was wearing a beige suit with gray stripes and a shirt of a beautiful lavender shade. Sorry to keep you waiting, the traffic outside is terrible, he said. With these words, he opened the door to his office for them. Isabella and Gabriella entered, and Alicio pointed to two comfortable leather chairs opposite his desk and turned on the air conditioner. It's going to be another very hot day, he remarked. Then Mr. Negra sat at the desk and smiled at his visitors with a charming smile. Let's start with me sharing my thoughts with you. Gabriella nodded and took a notebook and pen from her purse. Alicio smiled when he saw this. It's commendable that you've decided to take notes. The girl blushed a little. Gabriella always writes everything down, Isabella smiled. It's a useful habit, Mr. Negra agreed. So let's get to the point. When I saw your wooden figures, an idea came to mind. What if we launch a line of children's furniture with a similar design? Just imagine a chair in the shape of a horse or a bed with an angel at the headboard. I think it will be popular. Isabella and Gabriella looked at each other. That's a good idea, the girl said. I like it, her mother agreed. Alicio Negra smiled brightly. I'm glad you appreciate my thoughts. If you agree, I will invite the lawyer, and we can draft the contract. Isabella nodded. Yes, we would be happy to collaborate with you, Mr. Negra, she said with dignity. Thus, a new life began for Gabriella. Now, immediately after school, a car with a driver would pick her up, and she would go to the production site. There, she met with designers and worked with them on the project for a line of custom children's furniture. Gabriella liked the way the adult professionals treated her. With them, she felt like a professional herself, not just an ordinary child from a poor family. The project took several months to complete. Alicio himself rarely visited the production site, but his son Leo was often present. The young man was 18 and studying at a business academy, so he practiced and gained experience in his father's company almost every day. Leo seemed to Gabriella to be quite handsome. He had curly chestnut hair and bright green eyes. Leo wore glasses which gave him an air of mystery. He looks a bit like a poet, the girl thought of him. Leo was always kind and friendly to Gabriella, and one day he even treated her to lunch at a nearby cafeteria. The young people chatted casually about various topics, discovering they liked the same music and books and had a lot in common. Let's go to a concert together sometime, Leo suggested, and Gabriella gladly agreed. She liked the young man very much. Finally, the project design was ready, and it went into production. Gabriella received a fee, and most of the money went towards her father's medical treatment. 2 months later, the presentation of the new children's furniture took place. Alicio Negra sent a beautiful invitation to Gabriella, and Isabella dressed up. Mother and daughter went to the ceremonial event. It was held in a large shopping center decorated with colorful balloons and cardboard figures of horses and deer. For a moment, Gabriella felt like she had stepped into a fairy tale. Everything around her was so beautiful. The furniture, which she had worked on so long with the other designers, exceeded the girl's expectations. Gabriella stood for a long time admiring the brightly painted chairs and tables. Then Isabella approached her. Dear, I need to leave. The doctor just called and said he wants to see me. Will you stay here without me? I'll come back for you in a couple of hours, okay? Of course, Mom. Go ahead, the girl replied. Thanks to working on the project, Gabriella had become very independent, and she already knew many of the guests, so she felt at ease at the presentation. When her mother left, the girl gently stroked the smooth surface of one of the beds and noticed Leo. He was waving at her and Gabriella waved back. The young man was wearing regular jeans and a white polo shirt, which suited him very well. When Leo came closer, he congratulated Gabriella and handed her a pink gerbera on a long stem that he had been holding behind his back. The girl was very pleased to receive such a thoughtful gift. As a sign of attention. The young people strolled around the hall together, and then Gabriella noticed Mr. Alicio. He was not alone, his wife and younger daughter, Mercedes, who had recently turned 6, were with him. They were dressed elegantly and constantly smiled at the reporters. Mercedes then ran up to the custom furniture and sat at a table to pose for photographs, looking very cute. Finally, the official part of the presentation began, and Alicio was invited to the microphone to give a speech. The businessman talked a lot about his company and what inspired him. Gabriella didn't listen attentively. She watched Mercedes playing on the rocking horse, which was also part of their project. Then, suddenly, she heard Alicio's words. Many people asked me where I got the idea for my new children's furniture collection. It's simple, I was inspired by a girl. Yes, it was my daughter Mercedes. Gabriella froze in place for a moment, thinking she had misheard. Did Alicio really say that? She began to listen closely to what the man was saying. Meanwhile, Señor Negra continued, yes, it was Mercedes who told me one morning about an amazing dream she had. She saw magical furniture in the shape of horses, fawns, and butterflies in her dream. Since then, I've been inspired to bring my daughter's dream to life to bring joy not only to her but to other children as well. Loud applause broke out. The guests were delighted with his story, but Gabriella suddenly felt nauseous. It seemed to her that everything around her had become deceitful and terribly fake. She felt that behind the guests' smiles, entirely different emotions were hidden: greed, envy, hypocrisy. For a moment, Gabriella swayed and felt very stuffy. At that instant, someone took her hand. She looked up. It was Leo. Do you want to leave? He asked quietly, and Gabriella only nodded in response. Yes, and as soon as possible, she whispered. The young people stepped out into the noisy street, and Gabriella took a deep breath of fresh air with pleasure. I don't know why my father deceived everyone, Leo admitted and added bitterly, I didn't expect this from him. Gabriella just nodded in response. It was a very ugly act, Leo added. I'll definitely tell him about it later. Then he looked at the girl and resolutely added, but for now, let's go somewhere and have some cocoa. You look awful. Gabriella allowed Leo to take her hand and lead her down the street. It seemed to her that all the passers-by were looking at them. She felt like Leo's girlfriend and caught herself thinking that she liked this feeling. It's a pity that I'm only 15 and just an ordinary girl from a poor family, Gabriella thought. I'm not a match for him. Finally, Leo stopped in front of a small but very cozy cafe on the corner. Let's sit here, I love this place, he said. They went inside, and a small silver bell announced their arrival. There were only a few tables in the cafe, and all of them were free. In a basket on the floor slept a large fluffy cat, and bright pots with blooming geraniums adorned the windowsills. Gabriella liked this place very much. Leo led her to a table by the aquarium and pulled out a chair for her, then sat down opposite. A waiter approached and Leo ordered 2 hot cocos with marshmallows. Gabriella was very grateful to the young man for supporting her. My father really acted disgracefully, Leo repeated when the waiter brought 2 paper cups of cocoa. I understand he wanted to come up with a beautiful story for the press, but deceiving other people is low. Leo shook his head bitterly. It was clear that he was disappointed in his father's behavior. Surely it was his young wife who put him up to it. She never thinks about other people's feelings. Gabriella's eyebrows raised in surprise. So, it wasn't your mother? She asked Leo cautiously. No, my mother died when I was 6 and 5 years later, my father remarried. Gabriella lowered her eyes in embarrassment. I'm so sorry, she whispered. It's okay, it's all right, Leo replied, taking the girl's hand. I hope you're not too upset, he said. Gabriella didn't know what to say. On one hand, she was grateful to Señor Negro for what he had done for her and her father. On the other hand, she was hurt that Alicio had presented the whole story as if Gabriella had never existed. I'm just a girl from a poor family and don't expect much from life, she finally answered. The main thing is that my dad is now healthy. At that very moment, Gabriella received a message from her mother. Dad is fine. He will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. I'll be there in an hour, Mom, Gabriella wrote back. She then informed Leo that they had left the presentation and gave him the cafe's address. My mom will be here in an hour, she said. Then we still have time for a walk. There's a beautiful park nearby, the young man said. He paid for the cocoa and they left the cafe. The park was indeed very beautiful. Shady alleys and a fountain in the center greatly impressed Gabriella, who had never been there before. I don't want you to think that life isn't for you just because you were born into a poor family, Leo said as they sat down on a bench in the shade of an acacia tree. Gabriella looked at the young man in surprise. She didn't expect such words from him. It turned out that he had been thinking about what to say to her all this time. Gabriella felt very pleased. You are very talented, Leo continued, and I'm sure you have a great future, Gabriella. All you need is to believe in yourself and not let anyone treat you the way my father did. The girl nodded gratefully. She thought that over these months Leo had become her best friend. It was a pity that now the work on the project was over, and they wouldn't see each other at the workshop as often as before. Gabriella sighed. It seemed Leo sensed what she was thinking and took her hand again. I'm very glad I met you, Gabriella. You are a wonderful friend, he said. For some reason, the girl felt sad. She suddenly wanted Leo to treat her differently than just as a friend, but of course, she was too young for him. They walked around the park for a while and then returned to the cafe where Gabriella's mother met her. The girl hugged Leo tightly, knowing that they might never see each other again. The next day, the doorbell of Gabriella's house rang. A courier stood on the doorstep with a bouquet of pink hydrangeas, which had a white envelope inside. Flowers for Señorita Gabriella, said the young man. Isabella, who had opened the door, raised her eyebrows in surprise. Taking the flowers, she thanked the young man and called her daughter. Gabriella came down to the living room and stared at the bouquet in surprise. "These flowers are for you," said her mother. "But from whom?" The girl couldn't understand. For a moment, she thought it was Leo, and this thought made her happy. But when she took the white envelope in her hands, she saw the name of the young man's father. "These flowers are from Señor Alicio," she told Isabella, and opening the envelope, she pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Dear Gabriella," the girl read aloud, "I'm very sorry that everything turned out this way. I don't even know why, but I lied to the press, telling them a fictional story about the creation of our designer children's furniture. I am truly sorry that this happened. Therefore, I would like to do something for you. I know you are already quite grown up and soon you will have to think about the future. You are a very capable and gifted girl, and you should definitely develop your talent. Therefore, I have written a letter of recommendation to the director of one of the universities with whom I am personally acquainted, and he promised to accept you into the design faculty when you finish school. While you still have time, I advise you to focus on your studies. I wish you good luck, Gabriella," Isabella gasped in surprise, and the girl felt like she was dreaming. Could it really be true? She would attend university and get a good profession. "How lucky we are," exclaimed Gabriella's mother. "I'll tell your father right away." With these words, Isabella ran upstairs to the bedroom where Hugo was resting. He had not fully recovered from his illness and spent much time in bed. Meanwhile, Gabriella reread Señor Alessio's note. Yes, he had acted unfairly, but he had tried his best to make amends. What he did was a real gift for the girl. 3 years passed, and Gabriella became a university student. She joyfully immersed herself in a new life where everyone dreamed of doing something important and leaving their mark in the world of design. Gabriella met girls and boys from her course and even made friends with those who had similar tastes and interests. Together, they attended student concerts, plays, and other events. Each of her friends dreamed of meeting a good guy, but Gabriella was not very interested in that. She mostly thought about her studies and often drew in her notebook. After working on a real project, she knew a lot about the production process and now understood which ideas were worth bringing to life and which were better left on paper. One day, Gabriella's friends suggested they go dancing at a nightclub. She agreed but decided to bring her notebook and pencil in case she got bored. Gabriella wore a black shiny top and dark blue jeans, and she pinned her hair with a silver butterfly-shaped clip. She completed the look with long earrings with black rhinestones and was very pleased with herself. The club was crowded, everyone was dancing and enjoying the music. At first, Gabriella danced with her friends, but she quickly grew tired and secluded herself at a table to draw in her notebook. Soon, she was interrupted by one of her friends, Anita. Gabriella, I danced with such a guy," Anita exclaimed. Gabriella smiled in response. Handsome?" she asked, pretending to be very interested. "Yes," Anita replied, nodding towards the dance floor. "Look over there, he's sitting at the bar now." Gabriella looked at the dance floor and was stunned. Sitting where Anita pointed was Leo. He was wearing a black silk shirt and black jeans, and his curly hair was styled with gel. Gabriella noticed that Leo was without glasses, presumably wearing contact lenses. She felt her heart beat faster at the sight of him. "Isn't he cool?" Anita shouted in her ear and Gabriella nodded shyly. Yes, he is," she agreed. "I never dreamed of such a guy," Anita exclaimed, rolling her eyes to the ceiling. "I think he likes me too." Gabriella felt a slight pain of jealousy. Why was she sitting here with her notebook? For a moment, she thought Leo looked in their direction, but she wasn't sure if he was looking at her or at Anita. Did he remember her? Gabriella didn't know the answer to that question, but she knew she still liked him. Perhaps that was why she hadn't looked at anyone else. "I'm going to talk to him," Anita said loudly. "I can't miss out on a guy like that." Gabriella just sighed at her friend's words. "How do I look?" Anita asked nervously, looking into Gabriella's eyes. "Amazing," Gabriella replied truthfully. Anita was one of the most beautiful girls in the department. She had long curly cocoa-colored hair and big brown eyes. Gabriella thought that next to Anita she had no chance. She watched longingly as her friend walked up to Leo and started talking to him, coquettishly smiling and the guy animatedly responding. Sighing, Gabriella lowered her eyes and opened her notebook again. She was so lost in her thoughts that she didn't hear Anita return. "I'm shocked," Anita said. Gabriella flinched and looked up at her friend. "What happened?" she asked. "Do you know what he asked?" Anita pouted. "A what?" Gabriella asked. "For your name." Gabriella's heart raced with excitement. This was a dream she never dared to hope for, yet here was Leo, offering her a chance to turn her talent into something real. "Are you serious, Leo?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I absolutely," he replied, his eyes full of determination. "I've seen your work, Gabriella. It's unique and full of potential. With your creativity and my business knowledge, I think we can create something truly special." Gabriella took a deep breath, trying to process the enormity of the opportunity before her. She glanced down at her notebook, her drawings suddenly seeming more significant than ever. "Okay," she said finally, a smile spreading across her face. "Let's do it." Leo's face lit up with joy. Fantastic. We'll start planning right away. I have some ideas for funding, and we can begin by creating a solid business plan." They continued to talk late into the night, brainstorming ideas and sharing their visions for the future. Gabriella felt a newfound sense of purpose and excitement. She couldn't wait to get started on this new journey with Leo by her side. As the evening drew to a close, Leo walked Gabriella back to her home. Before they parted ways, he took her hand and looked deeply into her eyes. "I'm really glad we reconnected, Gabriella. This is going to be an amazing adventure." Gabriella nodded, feeling a warm glow inside. "Me too, Leo. Thank you for believing in me." "You always," he replied with a smile. With a final wave, Gabriella watched as Leo walked away, her mind buzzing with plans and possibilities. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but with Leo's support and her own determination, she felt ready to face anything. The next morning, Gabriella woke up with a renewed sense of excitement. She quickly got dressed and grabbed her notebook, eager to start working on their project. She met Leo at a cozy cafe where they spent hours discussing their ideas and sketching out plans. Over the following weeks, Gabriella and Leo worked tirelessly to bring their vision to life. They met with potential investors, designed prototypes, and refined their business strategy. Gabriella's talent and passion for design shone through in every piece she created, while Leo's business acumen ensured they stayed on track. As their company began to take shape, Gabriella felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She was doing what she loved, and she was doing it with someone who believed in her. The bond between her and Leo grew stronger, and she cherished every moment they spent together. Finally, after months of hard work, their first collection was ready to launch. They organized a grand event at a stylish venue, inviting friends, family, and industry professionals. Gabriella's heart swelled with pride as she looked at the beautiful furniture pieces on display, each one a testament to her creativity and Leo's unwavering support. During the launch event, Leo took to the stage to give a speech. He spoke about their journey, the challenges they faced, and the incredible teamwork that had brought them to this moment. Gabriella felt tears of joy welling up in her eyes as she listened to his heartfelt words. "And now," Leo said, turning to Gabriella, "I want to introduce you to the true star of our company, the creative genius behind all of this, Gabriella." The audience erupted into applause as Gabriella joined Leo on stage. She looked out at the crowd, feeling a mix of nervousness and pride. "Thank you, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "This has been an incredible journey, and I couldn't have done it without Leo and the support of all our friends and family. I'm excited for what the future holds, and I can't wait to continue creating beautiful, magical designs for all of you." The applause grew louder, and Gabriella felt a sense of accomplishment and happiness like never before. She looked at Leo, who was beaming with pride, and felt grateful for the chance encounter that had brought them back together. As the event continued, Gabriella mingled with the guests, receiving compliments and encouragement from everyone she spoke to. She knew that this was just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter in her life, one filled with creativity, success, and the promise of many more dreams coming true. Gabriella replied with a smile. "It's exciting to see our ideas taking shape. I can't wait to start working on the designs." As they walked through the bustling streets, Leo shared more about his plans and vision for their business. Gabriella listened intently, feeling more confident with each step they took. You know, Leo said, pausing to look at Gabriella, I'm really glad we reconnected. I always thought you had incredible talent, and now we get to bring it to life together. Gabriella blushed, feeling a warmth spread through her. Thank you, Leo. I never imagined I'd have this opportunity. It feels like a dream. It's not a dream, Leo assured her, squeezing her hand gently. We're going to make this happen, one step at a time. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Gabriella and Leo spent every spare moment working on their startup, from designing their logo to finding artisans who could bring their visions to life. Gabriella's creativity blossomed, and she felt more inspired than ever. She sketched countless designs for clocks, each one more whimsical and beautiful than the last. One day, as they were reviewing her latest designs, Leo looked up with a thoughtful expression. You know, Gabriella, your designs have a unique charm. They're not just functional, they tell a story. Gabriella smiled, pleased by his compliment. I want each piece to feel special, like it has a little bit of magic in it. And that's exactly what sets us apart, Leo said, his eyes shining with excitement. We're not just creating products, we're creating art that people will cherish. As their ideas solidified, they started reaching out to potential clients and showcasing their designs. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and soon they had their first orders. Gabriella couldn't believe how quickly things were progressing. She and Leo worked tirelessly, often late into the night, but it never felt like work. It was exhilarating. One evening, after a particularly productive day, they decided to take a break and revisit the park where they had first walked together after the presentation years ago. They sat on the same bench, reminiscing about how far they had come. Do you remember the first time we sat here? Leo asked, looking at the fountain that was now lit up and working beautifully. How could I forget? Gabriella replied with a smile. I was so upset that day, but it turned out to be the start of something wonderful. Leo nodded. I knew then that you were special, Gabriella. And now, seeing everything we've accomplished together, I'm more certain than ever. Gabriella felt her heart swell with emotion. She looked at Leo, realizing how much he had come to mean to her. I'm so grateful for you, Leo. You've always believed in me, even when I doubted myself. I always will, Leo said softly. He reached out, taking her hand in his. Because you have a gift, Gabriella. And together, there's nothing we can't achieve. As they sat there, hand in hand, surrounded by the beauty of the park and the gentle sound of the fountain, Gabriella felt a deep sense of contentment. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Leo would face them together, and their journey had only just begun. Leo looked stunned, completely taken aback by Gabriella's accusation. What are you talking about? He asked, his voice a mix of confusion and concern. I saw the message from your father, Gabriella replied, her voice trembling. He asked if you'd thought about his proposal to become partners, just the two of you. Are you planning to use my designs and then cast me aside like he did before? Realization dawned on Leo's face, and he quickly shook his head. No, Gabriella, you've misunderstood, he said earnestly. My father has been trying to convince me to join his company, but I told him no. I want to start something new, something of our own. With you. Gabriella searched his eyes, looking for any sign of deceit. All she saw was sincerity. I swear, Gabriella, I would never do that to you, Leo continued. You're not just my business partner, you're someone I care about deeply. She felt a flicker of hope but remained wary. Why didn't you tell me about his offer? She asked quietly. I didn't want to worry you, Leo admitted. I thought if I handled it myself it wouldn't affect our plans. But I see now that I should have been honest with you from the start. I'm sorry. Gabriella took a deep breath, feeling the tension ease slightly. I was scared, she confessed. I thought I was going to lose everything again. Leo stepped closer, taking her hands in his. You won't lose anything, Gabriella, he said softly. Not your dreams, not your designs, and definitely not me. We're in this together. She looked into his eyes, seeing the depth of his commitment. A-okay, she whispered, squeezing his hands. Let's do this together. Leo smiled, relief washing over his face. "Thank you for trusting me," he said. "I promise I won't let you down." They walked back to the office, hand in hand, feeling a renewed sense of determination. Over the next few weeks, their startup began to take shape. They found a small workshop to produce their hand-painted clocks and started reaching out to potential customers. Gabriella's designs were a hit and orders began pouring in. One evening, after a particularly successful meeting with a major retailer, Leo and Gabriella sat in their office, celebrating with takeout. "I can't believe how far we've come," Gabriella said, looking around the room filled with their creations. "It's because of you," Leo replied, raising his glass in a toast. "Your talent, your vision, it's what makes our business special." Gabriella blushed, feeling a warmth spread through her. "And your support and business acumen," she added. "We make a great team." Leo leaned in, his eyes locked on hers. "Oh, we do," he said softly. "In every way." As the days turned into months, their business flourished, and so did their relationship. They shared countless late nights working on new designs, brainstorming ideas, and dreaming about the future. Gabriella's confidence grew, and she felt more empowered than ever. One day, as they were wrapping up a meeting, Leo took Gabriella's hand and led her to the park where they had first decided to start their business. They sat on their favorite bench, reminiscing about their journey. "I have something to ask you," Leo said, his voice serious but filled with love. Gabriella's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Leo took a deep breath, looking into her eyes. "Gabriella, will you be my partner for life?" he asked, pulling out a small velvet box and opening it to reveal a beautiful ring. Tears filled Gabriella's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. Leo slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her gently. "Yes," she finally managed to say, her voice choked with emotion. "1,000 times yes." They embraced, their hearts full of love and hope for the future. Together, they had turned their dreams into reality, and now they would face whatever came their way as partners in business and in life. Leo and Gabriella sat in their favorite cafe, surrounded by the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Leo had just opened up about his conversation with his father and the misunderstanding it had caused. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away," Leo began earnestly, his gaze fixed on Gabriella. "I didn't think it would turn out this way." Gabriella listened intently, her eyes searching his face for sincerity. She wasn't ready to make a final decision yet, she needed to understand everything. "When we started working on our idea, I met with my father to ask for his advice," Leo continued, his voice tinged with guilt. "I didn't intend to tell him the details, but he insisted on knowing everything. So, I had to reveal our idea to him." Gabriella nodded anxiously, urging him to continue. "I didn't think it would go like this," Leo admitted, his brow furrowed. "My father was thrilled with our idea. He wanted us to develop the project together, presenting it as a family business. But I told him I was committed to working with you." He sighed heavily. "Of course, I didn't want to upset my father, but I made my choice that evening when we met at the club." Gabriella was stunned. "I told my father I would work with you," Leo explained further, a mixture of frustration and regret evident in his voice. "But he just dismissed it, thinking I would change my mind soon enough. And I guess when you saw his message on my laptop, he was checking if I had reconsidered." Leo ran a hand through his hair, his eyes pleading with Gabriella. "Do you believe me?" he asked softly, his concern evident. Gabriella hesitated for a moment, grappling with her emotions. She had been hurt deeply by the message she saw, feeling as though history was repeating itself. But Leo's sincerity now seemed genuine. After a pause, she nodded slowly. "It hurt so much when I saw your father's message," she admitted, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I thought you were going to betray me. I couldn't face you, so I left the office in a hurry. I'm sorry, I should have talked to you first before jumping to conclusions." Leo moved closer, wrapping his arms gently around Gabriella's shoulders. "I understand," he murmured, his voice filled with empathy. "You've had a negative experience before, so it's been hard for you to trust me. But I swear, Gabriella, I will always be honest with you." Gabriella looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of relief and affection. "Leo, I believe you," she said softly, leaning into his embrace. And I don't doubt your sincerity." With those words, a weight seemed to lift from both of them. They sat together in the cafe, finding solace in each other's presence and the assurance of their renewed trust. This moment marks a turning point in Leo and Gabriella's relationship, where they confront misunderstandings and reaffirm their commitment to honesty and trust. It sets the stage for their continued partnership in business and blossoming romance. Leo and Gabriella's journey continued with a newfound understanding and commitment to their partnership. Despite the initial misunderstandings, they chose to move forward together, both in business and in their personal relationship. I understand your concerns, Leo clarified, meeting Gabriella's doubtful gaze. Yes, it might be more advantageous for me to work with my father. He's experienced, and it would provide a sense of security. But I prefer creating this project with you. Whether we succeed or not, we'll gain experience together, and that's what matters most to me. Gabriella looked at him, touched by his sincerity and the depth of his commitment. Leo gently touched her cheek, reinforcing his words with a tender gesture. Leo, Gabriella murmured softly, her doubts melting away as she leaned into his touch. Leo smiled warmly at her, his eyes reflecting his determination and affection. Let's do this together, he said with conviction. 6 months later, Leo and Gabriella proudly presented their new line of ceramic clocks for home decor to the public. The reception was overwhelmingly positive, affirming their decision to pursue their creative vision together. Leo's father, though initially hesitant, attended the presentation and had to accept Leo's choice. He congratulated his son sincerely, acknowledging Gabriella's role in their success. Leo, beaming with pride, called Gabriella his beloved and introduced her formally to his father. Dad, I'd like you to meet Gabriella, Leo said, his smile wide and genuine. She's not just my business partner, she's my fiancée. Senior Negro raised his eyebrows in surprise, but then a smile crept onto his face. I've known her for a long time, he admitted. But not in her new status. Leo grinned at Gabriella, a silent promise and a future unfolding between them. 3 months later, Leo and Gabriella exchanged vows and embarked on a honeymoon to relax and find new inspiration for their joint business ventures. They were excited about the future, filled with dreams and plans for their life together. Dear viewers, if you enjoyed the story, the narrator concluded warmly, please support the video by liking it and leaving a comment. Thank you very much. Thus, Leo and Gabriella's story of love, trust, and pursuing their dreams together reached a beautiful culmination, promising a future filled with creativity, partnership, and enduring love.